coming tonight, and we're pleased to present our FY22 Superintendent's Budget Request. Mr. Diaz is going to lead us through our presentation, and then we'll be available to take questions. I want to thank everyone for making the time tonight to be with us on Teams, so that way if there's any questions that we can't answer, that we can call a friend and have them come in and help us with whatever we need. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Diaz, who's going to lead us through the FY22 budget request. Thank you, Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. I just have a few slides to present to the committee tonight. Just a quick agenda. We're going to be talking a little bit about state funding for FY22, both from a macro and a micro perspective. We'll be talking about our budget drivers for FY22, some reallocation of funds, as well as personnel for that budget cycle. We'll be talking about some other FY22 budget impacts as well. And then we'll finish up the evening with a FY22 through FY25 look ahead. And we'll be talking about some funding needs through FY25 as well as some transportation costs in FY26. Starting with state funding for FY22, per the state's foundation budget calculations, Marlborough's required net school spending is seeing a 1.99% increase to $69.3 million in FY22, with the city being responsible for the majority of that increase. The city has historically far exceeded required net school spending, which is a number calculated by the state. So we don't end up talking a lot about net school spending here, but these calculations do directly tie into how much Marlborough receives in Chapter 78. Superintendent and I approached this budget cycle with the assumption that FY22 would be a difficult funding year due to the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. The utilization of one-time funds to support federal and state initiatives is, in my opinion, creating a false sense of economic stability. We developed a 0% budget for FY22 so that we can effectively avoid any potential pitfalls from utilizing one-time funds to support operational needs. Instead, we're seeking to create long-term stability by developing a long-range funding plan for Marlborough Public Schools that we find sustainable. Of note in these numbers is that the city of Marlborough is only receiving $156,000 in new Chapter 78, even with the implementation of 1/7 of the Student Opportunity Act. This was the first time the city was held harmless in recent years, and we predict we may see more of that in future years. Another important number to point out on this slide is that the state is pitching in 45.49% of the funding it sees as net school spending, but the target aid is 42.37%. This is the state's way of saying that Marlborough could be paying a larger portion of its school funding. This fact, combined with significant growth that we've had recently in income wealth and property wealth in Marlborough, suggests that Chapter 78 increases will be lower in the years to come. Next slide just provides a history of the aid to Marlborough since inception in 1993. You can see in 2007, there was a change to the formula that was beneficial to the city. We've seen a large spike since then. We've grown from $7.2 million in 2007 to $31.2 million in Chapter 78. As mentioned before, we do expect that this will level out moving forward.
So one of the things that we're looking at, and we just want to be very transparent and open about, is we believe that we're going to be a hold harmless district in the future. We don't see any large increases in Chapter 78 coming to us moving forward. We believe that where we are right now, we're going to continue to be, and as we've seen in the figures that have been delivered to us this year, the increase in value and property, along with an increase in value and income, is going to drive that just as much as any other number, which is a good thing for the city. It's not a negative thing. It's a good thing that there is more value and wealth in the city.
So in summary, the budget for FY22, superintendent's request, is $66.6 million, equal to the FY21 appropriation, representing a 0% increase. Despite the 0% budget, we were able to focus on critical priorities for FY '22. Budget drivers this year were continuing the response to the COVID-19 crisis that is ongoing. Very important to us is the fact that we were able to retain all existing FTEs. We focused on K through 8 class sizes, expanded access to early education in the preschool, and continues our work towards strengthening the relationship with the community. Let's talk a little bit about funding reallocation. In order for us to create a 0% budget, we had to look at our numbers. There's always some increases that happen. We needed $353,000 for level service increase. This includes steps for eligible employees and increases in the existing contract for services. Also assumes that successful negotiations for 0% COLA in FY '22. There's $200,000 in the budget to offset preschool tuition, which I believe creates one of the first free preschools in the Commonwealth. This matches with priority 1.1, which is expanding seats in early education. There's $93,000 in the budget to continue the METAS program at the high school. There's currently 25 students enrolled there, and there's growing demand for spaces. And this ties in with priority 1.3, non-traditional academic opportunities for high-risk students. There's $65,000 to support increasing the FTE load for communications liaison, tying in with priority 3.1, strengthening relationships with the community. And there's also some reallocation of FTEs to focus on priority 1.2, supporting small class sizes at early learning. Altogether, new cost added to $711,000, which we offset by shifting one custodian salaries to the food service revolving account. We also realized some efficiencies with the closing of the IC school, as well as the proposal to shift into a 2-tier model in transportation. There's $76,000 decrease in other benefit lines, also a reduction in the district-wide math curriculum line for a large purchase that was done in FY '20, FY '21, and a reduction of $185,000 in special education tuition and other special education contractor services line. And that, again, matches the $711,000 in new cost that we needed. Talking a little bit about the FTE reallocation for FY '22. As part of the strategy for improvement, priority 1.1, administration is focusing on lowering class sizes in grades K through 8. At the elementary schools, we're utilizing one open SEL position, district-wide SEL position, and reprioritizing 7 interventionist positions to create 8 classroom teacher positions. This will bring our average classroom size to sub 20 students per class at the elementary level, which we find significant. At Whitcomb, we're reprioritizing 1 Hildreth nurse position, 5 interventional positions, and 2 tech humanity teachers to create 8 classroom teacher positions and lowering classroom sizes there to about 21, 22 per average per class.
And that will be the addition of a full team at 6th grade and a half team at 7th and 8th grade. So that'll bring our class sizes down to be pretty competitive. And then additionally, at the end of the slides, Mr. Diaz will show how in the next 2 years, we're gonna add a half team at the 7th and the 8th grade to create full teams at 7th and 8th grade to match what we did in 6th grade for next year.
Thank you. Next series of slides are other considerations we wanted to highlight for FY '22. First and foremost, administration will continue working closely with John Garside and the Board of Health in the continued response to the COVID-19 crisis. The district is also funding 2 additional school adjustment counselors in FY '22 to support the social emotional needs of students. This will be supported by one-time funds in FY '22, and FTE will be reprioritized in FY '23 to maintain service levels equitable across all grades. Students attending the Hildreth program were supported out of Marlborough High School during the pandemic. With a projected enrollment of only 18 students in FY '22 and a staff of approximately 16 being required to support an off-site program, administration is bringing the program back into the Marlborough High School building in FY '22. The program will maintain the appropriate level of academic, therapeutic, and work-based learning support for all students. Sticking with Marlborough High, we are proposing a change in starting times for that building. As we all know, studies show that starting high school later in the morning is beneficial to students, and currently Marlborough High is one of the earliest starting high schools in the region. Next year, we're planning to make a change, starting times going from 7:20 a.m. to 8 a.m. And that change, if we're able to implement it successfully, will have a slight impact on the elementary schedule by about 10 minutes. And just as a reminder that in FY22, kindergarten will return to food day. Just wanted to say that while I'm on this slide. HVAC. We are seeking to utilize one-time federal funds to support long-term capital needs of the school department. And we're looking to do that by upgrading our HVAC systems at Jarrick and Kane. Jarrick was built in 1963. Kane was built in 1968. These funds present an opportunity for us to upgrade the systems at these schools and potentially provide cooling to all, or at least certain areas of the schools. And this will, we believe, have a great long-term positive impact for the district. That leads into Richer. As we all know, in 2015, there was a statement of interest, or SOI, to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, MSBA, which looked at the Richer building. That SOI ultimately resulted in the successful Goodnow Brothers Elementary project, which we're all very proud of. We do still need to take a look at Richer. The school was built in 1965, which is 55 years ago, and we want to maintain our ability to keep classroom sizes small at the elementary level. So that would be a significant project for us. Rehabbing the school would address the issues found in the original SOI, as well as allow us to continue prioritizing small classrooms. We would submit the SOI to the MSBA in the spring of 2022, so 1 year from now, and then we would follow the MSBA process. It is a competitive process, but we do believe we are in their good graces because we have a very successful Goodnow project, which they are touting as a model of the model schools. This slide is a FY22 through FY25 funding look ahead. Through FY25 and accounting for FY22, this plan represents an average growth of 2.65%, which we find is a sustainable level of growth for a school district's budget. In FY23, we would focus on increasing access to the preschool, this building, with 1 additional teacher and 1 additional para. We would also focus on maintaining lower classroom sizes at the elementary level, with 1 additional teacher at Richer, and also maintaining lower classroom sizes at Whitcomb, with 2 additional teachers there. We would also, in FY23, bring back the elementary coordinator position that was cut in FY22, and continue our work in expanding night school options over at Marlborough High. In FY22, again, continue expanding access to preschool. That year, in addition to a teacher and a para, we would also add a bus so that we not only have space available, but also transportation to the building. At the elementary level, we would add another teacher, likely at Richer, and at Whitcomb. Sorry, I lost what year I was in.
We're in FY24, don't worry, Doug, I got you.
Thank you. At Whitcomb, another 2 teachers as well. And at the high school, we would look at creating some Block A opportunities.
And one thing to note is at the high school, some of the, for FY23 and FY24, it might be a mix. There might be opportunities to do Block A opportunities in FY23, and there might be night school opportunities in FY24. What we're really looking to do is expand in those 2 strategy areas and that's why we put that placeholder in effect. But it might be a mix of both in 1 year for both, so just so you know.
Thank you. In FY '25, we would further expand access to early education with one more teacher and one para at the ECC. Continue prioritizing low elementary classes by adding one additional teacher to the system, location to be decided, and adding a world language teacher and 2 interventionists at Whitcomb. Again, this plan projects 4-year average growth of 2.65%. Last but not least, remember this problem. So transportation will again be something of significance for us in FY '26. Due to some great planning by the superintendent and some good lucky timing for us in the market, we were able to secure a favorable 5-year transportation contract through FY '25. Our current prices are below market, and looking in today's dollars, going back to market prices would result in about a $1.1 million increase to the budget, which is significant, about 1.7%. And again, in today's dollars, so that gap may or may not grow between now and FY '25, depending on where the market goes. Those are all the slides I had for the committee tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Diaz. I appreciate you running through that slideshow. So I think just some general comments that I'd like to give before we hand it over for questions. And one is obviously that I don't think we need, I think just being transparent, Doug and I are very conservative. We're also pretty afraid of what we don't know, what the impact of what this financial issues are going to be. The state is relying on a lot of one-time funding. There's about $1.6 billion of one-time funding being used in the state budget right now. So I know that they're saying that there's a lot of money going into Chapter 70. We're seeing a lot of grant funds come into the district. We just want to be smart about how we use it. So I have the benefit of being in the same position as a business manager at a different district during the financial crisis in 2008. And at that time, we had a similar issue. The state funding was relatively level, but we also received a lot of one-time funding. And I just think that from our perspective, we want to make sure that whatever we do, that we're making a good choice and we're setting ourselves up for success and not having to set ourselves up to cut in the future. So I think what you've seen here is our best effort to try to meet those demands and also produce something that's going to continue on our strategy and keep hitting the key points. Expanding preschool is a huge opportunity for us. We might be the first in the Commonwealth to be able to offer a near universal preschool system to the kids in Marlborough, which is unbelievable. Being able to lower the class size at the elementary level below 20 is unbelievable considering where we were just a couple years ago. And we were at 23.6. I went back and looked. 23.6 as an average. To be able to get that next year to 19.7, give or take a couple kids that are going to enroll the next couple days. But to be able to see that type of drop is significant. And it's a good thing based on what we know we're going to be doing next year. Being able to support kids at the high school level and reduce the dropout rate, that's been a goal since day one. We've all had that same goal. So when we look at this, we understand that we have presented to the school committee a very conservative budget. We understand that. We also understand that this is the superintendent's budget, and now it's going to, as I hand it off right now, it is now the school committee's budget. So we recognize that from our perspective, this is our best guess of what's going to happen, and we're still, there's a lot of concern on our part about what FY '23 is realistically going to look like for the state, for the feds, and for the city. So that's just my 2 cents before we start in with questions. And we're happy to answer as much as we can. We do have our friends on Teams as well. So if we have to phone a friend, we'll pull people in one by one. And just, we're proud of the work, and we hope that you guys see the benefit of having a strategy for improvement with key indicators that we can absolutely come back to you and say, this is where we are, and this is where we can get better. So thank you.
With that, I'll open it up for questions from the committee. Who wants to go?
Anyone have any questions to start us off?
Who has a question?
We have lots of questions.
Entertain a motion.
You can try, every year you
Do
can
you
try.
want to go person by person, or should we go subject by subject?
Mr. Superintendent, what would you,
Happy if it makes sense to go person by person, and then, you know, we can,
okay?
and then at the
There'll
end,
probably
if
be
the-
some overlap and, okay,
Yep.
fine.
I always talk, start on that
All
side,
right.
please.
Mrs. Bowenhenge,
Okay, so my first question is in regards to the preschool and the tuition elimination. I'm curious what the capacity, now that DEC is out of here, what the increase in capacity will be under this budget and going forward, like how, I saw that you're gonna add a classroom, but, I mean, when you make a statement like us being able to offer universal preschool to the whole
Almost
community.
universal, sorry.
That's implying a lot more kids.
Yep, and we
so-
think we have, over the next 3 years, we believe we can add 3 more classrooms, and each classroom will require a teacher and a paraprofessional. And that will pretty much encompass the space that DEC moved out of. Some of the space that we moved out of won't automatically become a classroom. It has just given the preschool a little bit more breathing room. They had multiple people kind of in the same room. Now they're able to spread out a little bit more into some of the offices that we were in. But some of the offices we were in were actually classrooms. We had just built temporary walls in them. So we can take down those temporary walls. We can gain back those 3 classrooms. That'll give us a lot more opportunity. And I just want to keep on saying, almost universal. Like, we just don't have enough room to do everyone at 4 years old. That's not an option because we don't have the room to do 400 students. But we're going to be able to do a lot of students, more than we're doing now. So I think with 3 more classrooms, that's going to give us an even better opportunity. And then when we get to there, we can continue to look across the district and say, what spaces can we utilize to continue to expand if we have the ability?
And if there's the need, I mean, we do have private preschools in the community that families are utilizing. So we don't want to put our partners in the community out of business necessarily, but
No, we don't have the
it
room.
is,
Yep.
yeah, great.
Can I piggyback on that one though, real quick?
Sure.
Are you targeting, in the classroom, are you targeting the 4-year-olds, the 3-year-olds? I mean, one classroom doesn't cover the 2.5 to 4-year-old, right? So.
No, we're targeting the students who would be going to kindergarten.
So the true pre-K
Yep,
ones?
yep.
Okay, gotcha, thank you.
For all 3 classrooms, your look is for increasing that 4-year-old?
Right now, yes, but we're gonna see what the demand is.
Right,
Yeah.
what the
That's
demand
the
Okay,
thing, is as
but-
we can actually add and it's not for next year,
Yeah.
Right.
but it would be for the future year. So we'll see what the demand is, and then we can go from there.
So is there any increase for next year? No,
No, for
terms
next
of
year,
the-
it's the elimination permanently of the tuition.
of the tuition?
So there's no FTE increase for next year. And then the year after that, we would be increasing a teacher and a paraeducator. So that way we can then add another classroom, and then the year after that, the same, and then the year after that, the same. So overall, it would be 3 added classrooms by FY '25.
3 years. And how many students are in a class?
Mr. Burnaby, are you available?
Yes, I am.
How many students are generally in a class, Andy? Can you answer that question?
Yes, 15.
15.
And that's with a teacher and a paraprofessional as well, right, Mr. Burnaby?
Yes, at that grade level that you were talking about, Mike, it is, the kids are 1 year away from kindergarten, and there's 1 para and 1 teacher for 15 students.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burnaby.
is there anything else on that subject before
See,
Ms.
that's why I was-
Bowenhenge
Well, no, that's it,
continues?
no, I know, I think
I
it's
just-
subject related.
No, no,
I think
just on that subject.
related makes sense, yeah.
I'll piggyback if I can again. I know there is a push currently to expand early education nationwide.
Sure.
Which, for me, is a hope that maybe there's additional funding, because it doesn't seem like we get an awful lot of grants. Or do we? I mean, because looking at the grant list, I wasn't coming up with a lot.
We have
Right.
$60,000.
We generally receive the early childhood grant, Doug. I mean, is there anything else that we receive from the state?
I can just think of the $60,000 grant.
Yeah, the
that we have
60,
in
I
the
mean, so it's
budget.
like 65,000 between the two.
The
little
other
ones.
piece of it that is not well known is that generally for most preschool students, we get half of a foundation per student. So it does
okay.
add into chapter 70 at, I believe, the same rate. Doug, you can tell me if I'm wrong. Is it the same rate as a kindergarten student?
I don't think so, Mike.
Is it a little bit less?
I think so, yeah.
About 3,900 per student? That's my guess.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on the number, but it's not as much as the case.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
because what I was looking at is if, big picture, if we're spending a roughly $2 million to operate our early education, that is only receiving a small percentage of funding. I understand the long-term gain of having those children in our system early enough to prevent learning issues down the road. And I know you can't put a dollar amount on that, because presumably it costs more later down the road if you haven't had the child in order to, teach them things. But I'm trying to balance that, because as Michelle said, there's, we have a lot of choices in Marlborough for private. Not everybody is going to be eligible to get into our programs, and even if the mayor made a mandate and said, I want every child in Marlborough, to go to our early education, we don't have the space or the capability of doing something like that. Even though I'm sure we'd all love to do that in reality, but I know it wasn't really a question, but is there more funding,
waiting
I
for the
guess?
question.
Sorry, the question is
Like
the funding mechanism, sorry. You said, I did not know about the chapter 70 piece of it, that there actually is some of that, so.
Pretty much the chapter 70 piece is the only other piece that I think we would gain from adding more students. I think what you just explained is exactly why most municipalities do not have more of a tuition-free model.
Right.
Is because there is such little funding in some of these areas that they do not prioritize it in their school budget. They instead charge a tuition instead of, because most districts in the Commonwealth are where we are now at the hold harmless rate.
Right.
You're gonna get the $25 or $30 per pupil in chapter 70, and you're basically stuck there, right? There's no big change coming for a lot of those districts. So when they look at that formula, even if they added a whole bunch of preschool students, they're never gonna get any chapter 70 money. That's where they make that decision and say, we're gonna charge tuition instead.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
And just go ahead, sorry. Just continuing, since we're on this tear here, the chapter 70 money is for both typical and atypical learners? Because I know that the special ed students went free anyways, correct?
Chapter 70 is for both, yes.
It is for both.
Yep.
Thank you.
So on that same
Yep.
line, I guess kind of pushing out a little bit further then, are we anticipating then that we could move it that far, that it would align to when we got to the free kindergarten and we got a lot more of that money back?
It wouldn't be as dramatic, because it's not
Right,
gonna be,
it's a
when we did
lower
the free kindergarten,
Yeah,
it was close to a 200 student increase
right.
of half of what their foundation was. This is gonna be more of a slow 15
Build.
students, 15 students, 15 like, it won't be that large.
Yep.
However, if you did see an enrollment increase in other areas along with this, it's not gonna hurt.
So that then goes with my other question is, have we actually ever gathered data on our kindergartners that are coming in? How many of those kindergartners have attended preschool? To
Mike?
really understand,
Yep.
sounds like from
Mr.
beyond.
Mr. Burnaby, please jump in.
We did a lot of data on that last year when we were working on this as priority 1.1. And I can share it with you guys after this meeting through the superintendent if you would like. But we actually went and looked at last year's sophomores and juniors and were able to find out who attended the ECC, how they were doing, if they were on National Honor Society, if they had passed their MCAS. Like we have a lot of data on that, and it was extremely overwhelming in the favor of early childhood education having an impact. We also were able to look at if they attended local preschools other than us, and the data was very positive in that as well. And so the overall outcome was that early childhood education made an impact on those students in Marlborough. And it seemed to make more of an impact if they had the structured environment at the early childhood center. So some of those children are now might even be seniors that we looked at in the fall of 2019, if I'm doing, yes, it was the fall of 2019 we started that. And we also compared our numbers to local districts, and also districts that might not be local, but similar numbers in similar demographics to us. And it was also very much in the favor of not only Marlborough, but early childhood education having a major impact later on. So yes, Mrs. Hennessy, we did do that, and I'd be happy to share that with you guys after.
Thank you. I think that for me is kind of, not that I don't support it, because I definitely do. I think it's helpful to have that data to actually support for our community the importance of getting behind this early childhood education, right? Because when you move forward with this, there might be other sacrifices that are needed to be made in the short term for those long-term goals. So thank you. That'd be very beneficial to have that.
Sure, you're welcome.
Anything else on this particular subject? Ms. Bodenhedinger, keep going.
Okay, just keeping, I'm still on this one-page budget summary. Curious about special education tuition. Do we know, can we know how many students are aging out this year? And is that a big part of the impact on this reduction of
Invite
$135,300?
Assistant Superintendent O'Brien up to answer that question.
Thank you. We do have a couple of special education students who are turning 22 that are residential, as well as a private day. And the total number of special education students that we do have in out-of-district programs is roughly about the same. But a lot of the new placements have been collaborative placements, which are not as expensive as residential, so we were able to see a cost savings that we're able to use towards the budget. Excellent. Thank you.
Can I ask something off of that? So relative to the aging out, completely understand. One of the things I feel like I remember from conversations years ago is that there are increases that kind of happen at kind of odd timeframes. If I remember October or November, sometimes some of those out-of-district locations can just up their prices. And I guess that's the only question I ask about, because do we have the potential? Is there some wiggle room to deal with some of those price hikes that we could have?
Sure, I can answer that. So for any of the private out-of-district placements, we do get notification during this fiscal year that they're putting in a request for a program price change. And so in the budget, we budget them a little bit more than the 3%. So we budget them a little bit higher to factor that in.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a question probably more towards Mr. Bergeron. There's a lot of chatter statewide about the enrollment drop this year due to COVID. I know that relative to some of our other district friends, we have not had as bad a time of it. But my concern is, so first of all, have we, identified where the drop came from? Is it predominantly kindergarten students not starting?
No, so when we looked at our Chapter 70 numbers, we had a reduced enrollment of 129 students.
Okay,
I would say close to about 65% of it was a drop in enrollment from 8th grade to 9th grade, where Assabet took a larger group of kids than normal, and we had a drop of enrollment going into our high school. So that was, if you look grade over grade, we had a smaller freshman class than usual coming in because we had more kids going to Assabet. However, I don't see that as a continuing, like the classes coming behind it are larger. And even if those kids, we have those, the same amount of kids going to Assabet, we're gonna have more kids at Marlborough High than we've usually had in the past couple of years. So when we looked at some of our early ed numbers, for kindergarten and first grade, Doug, you can tell me if I'm off base on this, the numbers were negligible. It was like +1, -2. Like it was pretty much on average. So we didn't see any like across the district, we didn't see any major dips in any enrollments except for that 1 9th grade drop, which was we had more kids than usual, choice out, if you will.
okay. Well, that's relieving, yeah, because I was sort of thinking like, if there were a number of families that were delaying kindergarten starting, are we gonna get slammed next year with, 1.5 times the number of kindergartners?
First graders, yeah.
Or first graders, because you don't have to go to kindergarten, right? So, but you don't see that as being an issue?
Well, when we looked at, I was trying to see if I actually had the numbers. I'm just gonna bring it up on my computer real quick. We might see slightly larger enrollments for kindergarten and first grade next year, knowing that there may have been some parents who held their student out of that early ed. But I don't see huge drops in any of the grades. So I do look at that area of 9th grade. That probably was the biggest drop we had overall.
Yeah, interesting.
So, I mean, when we look at it, I think we can anticipate, we had a little bit of a lower K this year. We were around 388. I would expect next year we're in the 405 range, maybe 410, somewhere around there. And that's what we've basically anticipated for our class sizes.
Okay, so in the class size, the lowering class size plan that you have established here.
I think we're using 405.
You are using, okay.
Yeah, which is a higher number. And, looking at some, like first grade is a good example. In 2020, we had 409. In 2021, we had 415. We were actually up 6 kids. So I would directly relate that to the fact that we have been fully in person all year at
The
that
younger
grade
kids.
level.
Right.
At grade 2, we were at 398, 396. Almost no change.
Yeah.
So we might see slightly larger K and 1 grades next year, but I think we're ready for it. I think the plan we have with class sizes gives us a little bit of that wiggle room.
Yeah.
And we have good class sizes, so if we do add, 15 students across all the levels, it'll still be in a good place as far as our class sizes. If we see something huge, that's a different story, but we'll deal with that when we get there.
Plan B, right. Great. Okay, excellent.
Does anyone else have anything on that, Ms. Hennessy?
Yeah, 2 things around that. So, I see students when the school had closed, have we seen something specific? Or are we hearing of any other changes? I'm just curious if we've seen a bounce.
When
certain
the school announced closing, I did look at the enrollment for about a month and a half afterwards. We did enroll a fair share of IC students, but not nearly all of them. I think there was still plenty of other private school options out there for parents.
Plus, they weren't all Marlborough, so.
No, they weren't all Marlborough
Right.
students either.
No, agreed. Okay, and so then another enrollment question, I guess, sticking on that, would be through some of the increases that you're talking about for 6th grade and then the 7th and 8th grade happening, I'm guessing that our 5th grade is a larger bubble of students. Is that a fair assessment, that our enrollment's higher?
Fifth grade has about 400 students in it right now, which is pretty much exactly where 6, 7, and 8 is a large grade right now. 8
Okay.
is the largest it's been in a long time. So we're pretty much on target with that. We anticipate that generally between 30 and 50 students generally go to AMSA.
Right.
So we're looking at 400. We might be between 350 and 360 next year in grade 6.
Okay.
That's a good estimate for what we're doing. Right now, in grade 6 right now, we have 374, which is a little higher than that. And then in grade 7, we have 362, which is more on average of about 40 students less.
So where are we currently with 8th, out of curiosity then?
397.
397.
That's a big grade.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions on this? Let's go ahead, Joe.
Just along those lines, and this is a statement, not a question, but I did, sat in on a legislative forum of legislators, in central Mass, none that cover our area, it was more west of here. But it was very clear, there were two senators and 4 or 5, probably, reps, on the call. And they are very focused on this enrollment drop. So the jury's not in, as you know, about what they're going to do in terms of the October 1st numbers. If they're going to use this year's actual numbers, some of them are talking about using 2019 numbers. They're working on this in a lot of different ways, so for anyone who didn't already know that, I'm just putting it out there. Okay, moving on. That's preschool, we answered that.
Do you have something ready?
Yeah, I have, well.
Yeah, but keep going.
Yep. So, the $20,000 added for the parent outreach efforts. Can you talk about what that will look like, the additional planning around parent outreach?
So we had two plans for that. The first plan that Mr. Diaz, and he was working on that version of strategy for improvement. Part of that was going to be a targeted radio on Spanish and Portuguese stations with targeted messages about school. However, we've since probably gone away from that because the radio station that we were going to partner with has shut down. So I would be looking to use that money differently. I think it probably would be best spent on moving the communications coordinator position from a 0.8 to a 1.0 full-time, because I think we're getting a lot more out of that position than potentially some of the other factors. We're getting a lot of great buzz on a lot of our videos, and a lot of people are now following us on social media. It's been a very, very positive tool to help us get messages out to parents, positive messages. So that's where I think my mindset is right now, but we're still looking at options.
Because, I mean, I know, anecdotally, like, other districts have mentioned it, but I feel like I've heard it happening here, that one of the silver linings of this whole pandemic has been communication with parents. Since kids were learning from home, teachers were so much more engaged with parents in their kids' education. And, you know, we're on a roll here, and anything we can do to keep that going is only gonna be helpful, so.
Yeah, and part of that position for me also is not just the communications, but also the digital media. And I think that's the area where we can see the most growth and start to develop our own library of digital media resources for parents that would just be fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the early work that's been done is top-notch, and for kids to be able to watch their science teacher run through a lab is just fantastic. Like that's exactly the kind of things that we want to do. So that way you can support, and homework is starting to look a little bit different now. You know, it's starting to look, that you can watch something, because I think what we're seeing is the kids that we're serving, none of them really watch TV, but they certainly watch YouTube and TikTok. And I think YouTube is a great example of that's where they're getting a lot of their entertainment. And if we can understand that and then utilize that to also gain their attention for school, I think that's a way to go for us.
Yeah, that flipped classroom kind of mentality, right? They can watch the video before class, and the fact that they can go over and watch it again and again and again just gives them so much more support around their learning than just doing the lab in the classroom, going home and forgetting half of what they learned in the classroom. So I think that's excellent. Yes,
Yep,
please.
go ahead.
So, 100% love where you're thinking about, the communications coordinator and that money, because in my head, and this was a conversation that I just had with, Mrs. Murphy, the idea of having more of a video library available, of some of these, science experiments, working through mathematic problems, whatever it is. We've already recognized with the data showing that we all learn differently. And having that where you can have different opportunities to rewatch, learn at your own pace, go back again, do it again. Such an advantage, and I think that that's been a huge opportunity that we were fortunate to have someone in that role currently who made that capability available currently during the pandemic to have so many of these videos happen. I mean, I really applaud many of the teachers that stepped out of, say, their comfort zones and went ahead and took the opportunity to do that. But moving forward, it's not losing those incredible assets that we've learned from, right? And it seems like it could really continue to be a benefit in talking about what you guys are looking to do at the high school with like the meta program, having the opportunity of not only having obviously the immediate interaction with someone, but having those videos that could be available through this communications or digital assets would be, I think, a fantastic asset, not only for the immediate, but for our teachers as well. Helping to hone their skills, moving forward, the engineering process, relearning, rewatching, and moving forward again and pushing it further. So I think it's a great use of funds, so thank you.
And the last thing I'll say to that is we have a coordinated strategy that we work with city partners, and I would anticipate that we would continue doing that, especially with MEDC. They're a great partner. We do a lot of great thinking together, and that structure, I think, is really important to keep. And part of that job, the communications coordinator, is working with our partners in this way.
That also allows, though, for us to benefit in some of the production department that we have also at the high school. Still allowing the ability to cover off on different programs, whether that be theater, musical, music programs, the athletics. It still could be a great opportunity for learning for all of our production students. So it'd be great. Thank you.
Any other questions on that position?
Just one more comment regarding the family outreach. I was thrilled to get your email, Mrs. Murphy, about the Portuguese and Spanish classes for the teachers, which just adds to our toolbox to be able to communicate with parents. So seeing that was like, yay! It was exciting. Okay, so moving on, page 13, when you talk about like the elementary school reduction, class size reduction, rather. We're not reducing any elementary schools. So I'm highlighting the 7 existing FTEs from interventionist roles, and then the one from the SEL interventionist role, transferring them into the teacher roles. Are these 8 in classrooms now? Like, I know we did move the interventionists to classroom teachers for this year. And is it basically that those teachers are gonna stay where they are?
We have to impact bargain over that.
Is that what this is implying?
Yes.
Based on
Yeah,
impact
so
bargaining? Yes.
Let me answer the first question, I believe, was, are people currently in classrooms? Yes. Because we did the change, and we added as many early classrooms as we had in the 1 and 2.
Yeah.
we don't have like any intervention, right? We have classroom
correct.
teachers.
Right.
Understood.
So for the folks who would be affected by this change, we do have to then impact bargain over what it's going to look like. But I think we already have a process in place, so I think we're good, because we've done this before. And it would be a process of having open jobs, and then they would basically select a job, and then it would go by seniority.
Okay. So conceptually, taking the individual people out of those roles, the roles that are established for now is what you're anticipating going forward. That's how we're spreading out the classrooms.
No,
Sorry.
Did I
it's spreading
not-
to maintain an average class size.
Classroom size.
Right,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. I know I'm not.
Take the total and divide, gives you
articulating
how many
myself very
rooms we
well.
need.
And you did mention that the SEL interventionist is an open position now,
Yeah, we don't have anyone currently in that
currently in
position.
that role. Okay.
So relative to her question that was about these people being in classrooms. So we're talking about classrooms. Do we actually still have enough space to spread out? Because
I know,
you
what
know,
can we do, but
I
yeah.
hate to say it this way. I know we added Good Now, great, but do we still have enough classrooms to continue to keep on adding without putting somebody under the stairs again? You know, like,
Or redistricting.
or redistricting, or all of that change, because, you know, it has been our touchy subject of having to really look at our numbers increase down at our elementary level, and I'm just curious.
We have enough classrooms currently with this plan. I would say that, you know, Good Now is larger than anticipated. So I think we're probably, when we look at the next realistic project in Richer, I think that we do have to look at potentially adding about 6 classrooms over there.
Okay.
And that will be able to give us the growth and room to grow if we do have to move. I don't think we do a redistricting. I think we would be looking at streets. And again, that's why we looked at that policy recently, and we looked at not changing a family, but
More.
prospectively changing the street, so that way, you might have, you know, one group of kids who are a little bit older going to one school, and the younger kids who've moved in or been born and never gone to that school might be going to a different school. So that
Right.
way we can balance out over time. But, you know, we have a pretty full elementary population.
Right,
And, you know, we're not
Don't
at the
have any
place
empty
yet where
rooms.
we're under the stairs or doing anything like that. But you see in the future, the next couple of years, we will be asking for, 2 years in a row, we're gonna be asking for a teacher at Richer. And part of that is, if you look at their enrollment, right now, their current 4th and 5th grade have approximately 80 students, but the ones coming up behind them are class sizes of approximately 93 to 95. So what we're looking at is, we're gonna have to add 2 classrooms to that school to balance it out.
yeah,
And we have the current room, but I'm thinking about the future.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about everything else that we're gonna be doing, and if Richard's gonna be the next project in the future, I think it would be wise for the city to build 6 more classrooms at that school. And the reason I say that is because that'll add you 1 per grade, K through 5, and that allows you to maintain what we have now.
and I obviously must have been on your brainwaves, because that's where I was going to, was I was anticipating that Richer looked like it was gonna have to obviously have more size down the road, but were we able to, in the meantime, be able to amp up the classrooms, to be able to meet that need with what we have currently there? So, okay, thank you.
Any other questions on, seeing none?
I just have a question on page 15, the little box that talks about the ESSER grant and how much it is. What is the CVRF and RTLE grants? What are those?
It's the Coronavirus Relief Fund. It's another grant, federal grant that we received. And in conjunction with that grant, there was another $232,000 for remote learning technology.
So they're both coronavirus relief ones?
Yes.
Okay.
There,
Those have been expended.
every single dollar.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
paid for our abundance of PPE, et
Yes.
cetera. I'm sure. Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead. Do people have anything in the next
Just go ahead,
page
keep
or
going,
two,
and then
or
we'll-
just keep going?
Keep going.
All right. Let me see where.
If you're ready. If you're not,
Questions.
we'll move
I'm
on.
ready. Okay. So this is around the facilities capital plan. I don't know what my question was. I had a question about Richard, but, all of the stuff that, aside from the restroom partitions that's ongoing, this not scheduled stuff, is this all stuff that is gonna be included in the SOI? As far as.
Are you
can tell?
specifically
I'm
talking
on
about
page-
Richer or?
Specifically Richard, yeah. 21, because, page 21.
It's not scheduled yet, Mike.
Yeah, no,
It's not
that's, so we wouldn't want to actually schedule any of that or put funding towards it, because under the state reimbursement formula, we're gonna get like 68% of that money back through the MSBA program. So there's some things at Richard that have already been done. Like, one example would be, we replaced the boilers there, I think, a couple years ago. So that's already done, and they're in great shape.
Yeah.
But a bigger rehab of that building would be new windows.
Yeah.
It would be all of those things that we wouldn't normally do with our own money.
Right, yeah, that's what I presumed. Okay, on to the high school. Replacement of the wood shop dust collector.
I thought we just did
Mrs. Matthews and I have vague recollections in the past, Mr. Riley, that we did replace that dust bin of, at some
that.
point in
Too, like, I
time.
didn't pull my budget
Did we make that
book.
up?
No, that was replaced recently. That was replaced, I'd say, within the last 10 years,
Oh,
for
I would
sure.
say even the last 5. Yeah,
Yeah, it wasn't replaced while I was principal, but I know it was replaced recently.
Yeah. Okay, so my other question is, that beautiful room that was installed in Hildreth for the advanced manufacturing, what happens to all of that?
We could still utilize that equipment. We're not giving up control of that building.
Understood,
Yeah,
but are
we're-
we gonna
we're s-
transfer kids? I mean, I presume that was intended for
I'll make a
the,
bold statement here, if you will.
okay.
I think we need to get past the idea that school is from 7 to 2.
Oh, thank you, that's my
oh,
idea.
no,
That's my
Why don't we let the superintendent speak first before everyone speaks?
I think what we're gonna look at is that building is a great asset.
Yeah,
And I think we're gonna continue to look at, and I think when you see the plan, when you start to see things like block A opportunities and night school opportunities, I think what you're gonna see from us is we're gonna try to develop classes to use the entire district, and we're gonna try to get past this, school can only be during this school time.
100%, no,
Yeah.
that's excellent.
Yeah.
That
So
was the
we've
answer I
had
was
some
hoping to
great
hear.
investment in those buildings, and we're gonna keep it. And
Yeah.
we're gonna use it, and I think it can be a really strong program for kids beyond the school day.
yes.
Yes.
We look at Hildreth being open later than that, and that's kind of the plan that we've been moving forward.
Yeah. Project Adventure. When, where, it's not scheduled, we still haven't,
So there's a couple pieces with that. One is, Mr. Turcott and I plan on the next probably couple weeks, we're gonna walk some area near Marlborough High School with the Conservation Commission. I've been in contact with Mr. Clancy, and we're gonna look at some land that potentially could be used, but I don't wanna get too far ahead of the process. I wanna respect the process, that whatever we do, that we do it the right way and we go through the right channels. This isn't a funding issue, this is an area issue. We gotta figure out where we can put it, where I'm not gonna have to move it. Because when we do this construction, it's gotta be a permanent construction, and it's gotta work. I don't wanna, ruin an area if we don't have to. I mean, I really don't see this as being something that we wanna move again. It's gonna be a pretty expensive construction, so I wanna really do it once and do it the right way. So we have one-time funding available to do a project like this, and we'll have money available at the end of the year. But we're gonna go through the steps and try to look at some areas around the high school that could be a good fit for that.
so are you anticipating that might be completed in the next year?
Oh, boy, I hope so.
I hope
And I
it's,
think
by
Mr.
the
Turcott
fall,
would hope
right?
so too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They've been waiting very patiently to get their high elements back.
yeah,
We installed some low elements at the high school as a kind of a middle ground to continue the program, but it's not the same. To truly have a program that uses this, you need to have the high elements. It's completion. It's really what to aim for. And I think it's a really fantastic program for wellness at the high school. So it's more of a, we gotta put it in the right spot, so that way we're not
So we
digging
have
it
to
up
move it
later
again.
and
Yeah.
moving it, because if you do, you
Yep,
know,
that's the
it's just
point.
not gonna work.
Yep, understood. Okay.
Are there other questions on facilities? Ms. Hennessy?
Shocker. Camera update. I love it.
Oh,
2008 just keeps
cameras.
on coming.
It's about updating the quality of the cameras. So it's just replacing, if we have a camera, it's replacing the camera itself, so we have a better HD. That's right, Mr. Diaz?
Yep, we have a pretty strong network right now. We have some good storage capacity. Now it's
That's what I was
about the
wondering.
quality of the cameras.
Okay, so we are looking at an increase on our storage capacity.
We've increased our storage capacity pretty significantly
Okay.
recently. We can keep up to 30 days currently.
And is that currently that we are keeping that here within the school system, or is that something in coordination with the city, with the IT program over there? Only because when we had talked about it at one point, that was, the storage was sometimes discussed being here on site.
It's a
Oh,
secret.
no,
Nobody
it's
needs
at,
to know where it
it's,
is.
we have, it's at City Hall, and that's where all the storage is.
Okay, that's what I was trying to clarify.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other facility questions? Next.
I think that was, I have just a couple of, just questions about some of the, positions that are open, like the director of nursing position, and a plan for, I don't know what to call it, the overseer of guidance.
Yeah,
Those kinds of positions, like, where are we with those?
so the supervisor of guidance, we have not filled and we're not planning on filling. The supervisor of health services, we are actively out there trying to find a candidate and fill that position. So that has been a difficult position to fill this year. We're looking to, we're continuing to talk about it.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I have identified.
Next. Ms. Hennessy?
Unless you want to.
Go ahead.
Well, we had talked about this earlier, so, question around world language within the middle school. Just looking at where we are currently talking about 22, but then there was discussion, about an addition of world language down the road.
The idea behind that was, at some point, we have a current system where there's intervention or world language, and as we see it growing in the future with less kids needing intervention, that we will need more kids in a world language piece. So what we're looking to do is reinstate the world language position, that we move to a different area in the
Okay.
future date.
Wait, I'm sorry, move to a different area.
We had taken that world language
Yeah.
position, and we had reassigned it within the middle school.
Right, but
Yeah.
we are looking then to reinstate it down the road.
A world language
Yes.
position.
Yep, okay. And then I guess staying at the middle school, I noticed that there was a vacancy at the guidance counselor level. I'm assuming that that's gonna be,
So retirement.
right, so that will be filled.
Yep.
Okay,
We already have that posted, I believe.
okay. I just wanted to double check, because obviously, we need a lot of guidance at this point with everything going on, and especially at that age group, there's a lot going on. Dual certifications, we had talked about for our health and wellness, just curious where that's standing, or how is that standing at this
We
point?
post prospectively all jobs as needing both
Okay.
certifications.
Okay.
And we've been pretty consistent with that. I'm looking to Mary, and she's giving me the nod yes, so.
Okay,
And we continue to do that prospectively.
great, okay, thank you. And I think, actually, Michelle, you may have kind of touched upon it, and I guess I want to make sure again, about some of the therapists for speech therapy and the occupational therapy. There were some vacancies currently. I'm just curious, are we satisfying that within what we currently have here within district? Are we utilizing those services outside to satisfy those needs, or have our needs decreased and so we don't need to have those positions filled currently?
But the vacancies might be a retirement, if there's a
Okay,
vacancy in
it
a
looked like
position.
some weren't, so that's why I was just trying to understand if it was like our needs have potentially changed.
Finding codas is impossible.
The speech and language position that's in there is actually one that should be closed. We ended up hiring a .6 physical therapist and increased and put some of the budget towards an AAC specialist that we have been trying to fill instead of doing contracted services. The only vacancy that we have for related services is the .8 occupational therapist that's between Wickham and the high school, and that's being contracted out by an agency this year.
Okay. Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Any other questions? Anything else on that?
It's funny, it was mentioned in the slides earlier, the $140,000 math curriculum reduction, that,
That was a one-time spend. So it was over 2 years, we bought the math curriculum,
yep.
but we don't need to maintain that money in the budget because we bought it. So now in the.
Oh, even though, so we had it there as a placeholder and we don't.
So we don't need that funding because it was a one-time purchase. So in the future, we might need to reinstate it to do a one-time purchase, but for right now, we don't. We have math funding at all the different schools to be able to buy consumables, but the actual product we've already bought.
Gotcha,
Was,
okay.
was the original plan that we were gonna buy it over a couple of years, like it was like 50,000 a year for a
We
few
sped that
different
up.
years or something?
Okay.
That's what I
Yeah,
remember, yeah.
Okay.
Ms. Hennessy,
I just was gonna say, I'm really happy to see the expenditures heading towards the METIS program. Are we looking at, and I'm guessing that we are again towards the conversation that Ms. Murphy and I just recently had with some of the data we're trying to pull off of what we're seeing with the students this year, and any areas where we need to give additional support next year on trying to get everybody, like filling voids, if you will, for where we're seeing potential voids. Is that one way the METIS program might be able to help some of those students? Are we looking at additional programs to be able to help
Yeah, so the METIS is directly for
that dropout rate?
overage, underaccredited students. And generally, it's really targeting the fact that a lot of our dropouts over the past couple of years, we noticed were EL students. So what we're doing is that program really is specifically designed to support that age group coming into high school, maybe a little bit overage, but underaccredited. So you might have someone who's 17 or 18, but don't have any high school credits, they're coming as a freshman. That's an opportunity for them to get their high school through a competency determination program. I think what we're talking about for students in the system who might have experienced some loss during the past year, I think we have a lot of programming, and Ms. Murphy can come up and speak exactly to that. We have funding that's gonna be set aside from all of our federal grants for that one time, and we're already doing that. So we've already posted a lot of those jobs for after-school, before-school help and those types of programs. So that's gonna be like a multiple-year program we're on.
Okay, so
And then-
it's kind of already built in there, it's just not something that we would automatically see.
You wouldn't see it because it's gonna be out of a lot of the one-time funding that we're receiving.
Okay.
So, and the other piece of it is, I would anticipate that part of what we're gonna be looking at beyond METIS and looking into the night school is potentially looking at something along the lines of like high school equivalency to make sure that we can have a robust, we wanna stop dropouts. We wanna give kids as many options as possible and get them to their diploma or their equivalency and really, stop that dropout problem. That's where I think we're gonna go with some more of our night school opportunities on top of what else can we do?
Yeah.
And I think that we have a great big world out there for that.
Well, and another reason why their opportunity could present itself for Hildreth to be another expansion space for different programming, whether it's,
Alternative program.
yeah,
Absolutely.
nights, weekends, whatever, to expand it.
And we have, it's a beautiful building, there's 16 classrooms, more than enough room to be able to do all of that and more.
Well, and what we've also talked about, you know, pie in the sky, wouldn't it be great if we could add something from an adult standpoint? So, okay, great, thank you.
Anything else on that? Vicinity.
No, I've asked the main thing, I'll probably got more coming around, but I'm sure, yeah.
Mr. Matthews,
No, most of my things are covered here.
Mr. Caruso.
Really, mine's just a sort of a general question about the, my concern basically is that we have obviously lost a lot of time, students have lost a lot of time, and I just wanted you could just generally address what the budget, how this budget will, in addition to the adjustment counselors, how the budget is gonna address our follow-up with the students that are gonna need some extra help besides, just specifically, how that happens.
Sure. So I think the first thing is that for all the students, we're doing NWEA testing to determine where are they on benchmark for grade level. So that'll give us some data to determine whether or not kids are making grade level gains in both ELA and math. And that's through the high school that we're gonna have that data. The next step is, I think we're gonna use the available funding that we're gonna get, that we normally would get, not pandemic related, but we always get funding in Title III, in Title I, Title III, that we're able to run for summer camps and run for summer school. We're gonna have that, and on top of that, we're also gonna have federal funding available for us to do more if we have to do catch-up or we have to respond to any losses that kids are showing over time. So I think that's a start, and I think we're gonna go from there and see what else we can do. I let Ms. Murphy also, if there's anything else you wanted to add to that in terms of what we're doing, so.
So I think you covered it. That as a district, every educator has the same goal this year, and it was to increase student achievement and measure it through using NWA map. So we're about to do the third cycle for that to see where we're at in that goal. We've done after-school, Assistant Superintendent O'Brien, Lynn Medallion and I, we pulled our money, we offered it out. We have after-school programs running. We have additional grant funding and as well as Title I, specifically dedicated to the high school and K through 8 for all summer long, plus transportation. And then we just added another $75,000 to after-school extended day supports through next year. They might look a little bit differently because all of our students would be expected to be in school, so we'll be able to have some remain in school, but we may do some remote for those students that really thrive through that as well. So we're going to set up a variety. We'll also, that's all not counting our Title I funds or any additional ESSA funds that may come in the future.
Can I ask a question relative to that? Because you just touched on something that we know some thrive with remote and
They
some
do.
don't.
Right.
And going on to the creating YouTube videos, what are instructional videos and targeting kids, is that on the horizon too? I mean, obviously you're saying some may stay at school after school, some we may engage remotely.
So
The world is open right now. so-
ideally, we would love to have the ability to meet every student
Of
where
course.
they're at. So ideally, we would love to be able to, if a student needs to have some remote for a while, to be able to offer it. We don't know if that's gonna be within the boundaries. But we are hoping that at least those conversations will happen at a statewide level.
Yeah, I mean, I jumping on Dan's stuff here, and I'm happy to hear that you're talking about the fall already as
Yep.
far as the after-school additional things, even if it's, 20 minutes during lunch kind of things, any alternative to help touch a child who needs that extra.
And I know Dan's been talking a lot about what high school courses can be added to make sure that students, if there's a gap, like, that it's a multi-year plan is in place. So we're all looking at not only today, the rest of this year, the summer, but we're all past the opening of the school year, planning next year.
That's wonderful to hear.
Can I, along with the, adding the social emotional piece to this, I think I remember seeing there's funding for 2 additional adjustment counselors. Where are they going?
The elementary level.
Okay.
So it would be that every elementary school would have 2.0 FTE for adjustment counselors.
Great, thank you.
And then in FY '23, we're gonna have to readjust because it's one-time funding. But that, Ms. O'Brien has been working on that, and we have a plan to readjust through the secondary to maintain that in the future at the elementary level, which gives a little bit, I think, more equality of the number of students served.
Thank you.
Questions?
I think
Oh, Dan was still
Mr.
going.
Carissa's
Actually-
on his roll.
You've done such a fine job, I feel like I have very little to ask
You
you.
did, you opened it up to everybody.
I just had one, it's just because we hadn't come up before, but has the high school starting time issue been addressed? Or is that something where we should be prepared to address at some point?
So,
It's happening.
Mr. Riley has spoken to his parent group, and he got some feedback from them. He's also spoken to his student group and starting to get some feedback from him. I've been bringing it up at the elementary PTO meetings that I've been attending and getting feedback from them as well. I don't want to speak for Mr. Riley, and there may be some concerns here and there, but overwhelmingly, we're getting a response that makes us feel like it's the right move to make.
I don't have anything negative about it, I just wanted to be sure, to be prepared if there was going to be a little bit of a pushback, but from what you tell me, there's probably not going to be as big a pushback.
Kids are gonna be happy to sleep an extra half hour.
Can I just say, like, on that front, I know that, we've had many discussions on the state level at the MASC seminars, like, for the last number of years. We've had a lot of discussion around this issue, and I think overwhelmingly across the state, a lot of positive push on that kind of a change. And even I would say at some of the MIA meetings that I've been having, I think there has been a positive conversation on it. There has been a conversation about how that will affect some of the starting times for games and things like that. But I think everyone seems to be very open to making it happen because we think it would be the overall benefit of the student athlete. So 2 cents on that.
Yeah, and Mr. Riley, if you want to chime in, I think what some of the feedback from the students is they just don't want to lose any opportunities. And the other thing is that, a lot of the students have a rigorous course load, and they want to make sure that they have enough time. If we have a longer school day, that means they're in the school longer in the afternoon. They want to have enough time to do what they need to do. So I think that may generate some discussions for us at the secondary level. I'll let Mr. Riley talk about that, any feelings he has about the subject, about how we do those types of activities and what we're assigning kids at night. Dan, if you wanted to jump in and give you 2 cents on the discussions you've had with parents and students.
Yes, thank you, Mike. So as Mike had mentioned earlier, overwhelming majority of support from school council and also the student leadership committee. I think what the students recognize is the impact on their school day. And they had a lot of questions about what happens when we shift the school day back and what becomes of their afternoons when they have that 35 minutes that's no longer theirs. So one of the things that I pointed out to them is, number one, we are already one of the earliest start times.
In the
So the
state,
vast what's that?
in the state, I know Mr. Diaz
Yes.
mentioned in the region, we are
Yes.
like the earliest in the state.
Yeah, so before I had actually met with them, I had spoken with other principals in the region and also with Athletic Director Rudzinski, just to ensure that I could give them the confidence that those kind of set schedules after school, either A, other schools are already doing it with a pushed back start time, or B, that they wouldn't have a negative impact on their competitions, which are typically a set schedule determined by the league in the region. So I gave them that assurance. I think as Superintendent Bergeron had pointed out, what they're wondering is for some of them who have a full course load, many AP classes, they're playing sports, they're in clubs and activities, the thought of losing 35 to 40 minutes in the afternoon was a little bit scary to some of them. Although I think they recognize immediately the intrinsic benefits. So we talked a lot about what could happen before school to support the early risers. We don't want them to forget that the reason why we're proposing this change is for their health and well-being, in that as young adults, they benefit from more sleep and sleeping a little bit later. So we didn't want to defeat the purpose of saying we're going to still have all these activities before school and not give you the opportunity to sleep in a little bit more, because that's part of the purpose for the change. But they did want us to work as a school on how we can discuss the things we can control, which kind of relates to the academic expectations that get put on them as students after school hours. And that if the school works together, collaborates together across departments, that we can come up with a better system of expectations that doesn't overburden them to be up into all hours of the night, hence defeating the purpose of the later start. So they understand the benefits of it, and I think that they just want us to be conscious of their needs in the afternoon so that they're not being pushed into later hours of the night to complete their work after participating in all different types of activities.
Good? Other questions?
That's the end of mine, Mr. Mayor.
Tennessee?
Sorry, one more that I guess I'd love to take the opportunity on patting you all on the back for the technology expenditures over the years and all of the planning that's gone into it. And so I'll say that to Tom Plotty and all of your merry band of technology folks that have supported, because boy, were we in a good position technology-wise for when the pandemic hit. And I say that only because I think everybody had really understood how we need to involve technology in our lives previously. But I thank you all, because I think thinking ahead really put us and all of our students and teachers in a much better position to have to positively react to such a crazy situation that none of us would have ever envisioned we were in. So thank you, and that's just saying I appreciate all of the planning that we see then continuing to move on forward, because that stuff needs to happen for us to really keep current. So a huge thank you.
Can I add, I have there's a wonderful group of instructional technology specialists that really made the day, and their work has been so great, and to carry everything through. So Nancy, Maurice, Jen Smith, Jackie Carter-Holbrooks, and Chris Henry.
Thank you, Tom. We appreciate all their work.
Other questions?
I just want to add to that the city infrastructure around tech. I mean, you know, City Hall, like everybody really pulling together to make it happen was really tremendous.
Even Arthur learned how to Zoom.
What's that?
Even you learned how to Zoom.
With a little help.
But you did.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a technology that, it's been great. We are gonna, hopefully in the next couple of months, get everyone back into the buildings and go having meetings in person. But we do, the goal at City Hall, and I'm sure it is here too, is to continue the Teams meetings live so the public can see them. Even though everyone's still in the building, we can show them live and have them accessible on the city website. So similar to what we're doing now, but we're going to continue that later on also. So we're putting up screens in different rooms, and it's been good, but we still have some tweaking to do. I've had some frustrations with some of the committees. They've been a disaster and unacceptable. and made that very clear, that they have to learn how to run their meetings, or I need to find people that can, so. But it's something we're gonna keep going, hopefully, long-term.
That's great to hear.
Awesome.
Any other questions on the budget?
You have any questions?
Any other questions? Mr. Gary? Mr. Gary, entertain a motion.
No motion tonight.
Oh, we gotta do that public hearing thing. All right, I will entertain a motion.
Anything else we haven't covered that you
Anybody
wanted to
else
make
have
sure
any?
we understood?
Nope, I appreciate your diligence in going through it. I hope we answered the questions, and I guess at this point, we release the superintendent's budget to the school committee at this point. So now you have it for your
Shoulder.
deliberative sessions.
And thank you to everyone for being there if we had questions, and
Yeah, thank
We
you very
appreciate
much.
that.
We appreciate all of the diligence of information across the board.
motion to adjourn.
Motion made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you very much.